Hi, my name is Nicole Ravelli, and my community-based theory that I will be talking about today is the conflict theory. So conflict theory helps social workers explain how power structures or disparities impact people's lives. There are four main concepts that are imperative in conflict theories. These include conflict, power, minority, and change. So conflict in itself is the disagreement between two opposing groups or interests. Society at large is filled with various competing groups fighting for power and resources. The group of people who are in the minority struggle, which leaves them in a constant state of conflict, and ongoing conflict results in pressure to change and the distribution of power. Power is the ability to be in control or influence collective decisions or actions over a group of people. And minority refers to groups of people who have limited access to power, even if they do have the majority in numbers. So this typically is the people who are more oppressed members in society. And change is the transformation from one circumstance to another. So society at large is filled with various competing groups fighting for power and resources. The group of people who are in the minority struggle, which leaves them in a constant state of conflict, and ongoing conflict results in pressure to change in the distribution of power. So conflict theory can be classified into two categories, which is class conflict and interest group conflict. So some strengths to conflict theory is the theory is helpful for social workers to understand the social mechanisms behind competing groups, especially with significant power differential. And it's also helpful for social workers to understand and help with help when there is conflict of interest. And some weaknesses is the theory does not explain why people work well together and cooperate together. And it also does not work at the micro level interactions and the individual. So class conflict focuses on social class and society, which looks at the rankings of people based on their wealth, power, and family background. In society, people who have money tend to have power in society, while on the contrary, people who live in poverty tend to have fewer resources and power in society, causing ongoing conflict for this group. So Karl Marx was a German philosopher, economist, and activist. He conceptualized conflict theory based on class differences and conflict, and he came up with the social class theory, which establishes the ranking of people in society based on their wealth, power, and family background. And he said society could be divided into two different halves, the haves and the have-nots. The haves, also called bourgeoisie, have access to wealth and power, and the have-nots, also called proletariat, have little to no access to resources. So the social class in the United States, on the bottom level is the poor class, homeless, and unemployed. And then from there, it goes from lower middle class to working class, to middle class, to upper class, and then at the top, elite class. Elite class and upper class have all of the power in society in the United States. So an example of the bottom tier would be a homeless person. The lower middle class or working class, an example would be someone who works in the fast food industry. And middle class would be your pilots, nurses, construction workers, and businessmen and women. And upper class typically are the physicians, dentists, and pharmacists, and lawyers. And an example of the elite class would be President Trump or someone who has a lot of financial power in the United States. So I found a great explanation of conflict theory using the movie Mean Girls to explain conflict theory. This could be held true, especially in high school and middle school with different girls and different social cliques as well. So I hope you guys all enjoy this clip.
Holy, would you look at Karen Smith's gym clothes?
Of course, all the plastics are in the same gym class. Where are the plastics?
They're teen royalty. If North Shore was Us Weekly, they would always be on the cover.
That one there, that's Karen Smith. She is one of the dumbest girls you will ever meet. Damien sat next to her in English last year.
She asked me how to spell orange.
And that little one? That's Gretchen Wieners.
She's totally rich because her dad invented toaster strudel.
Gretchen Wieners knows everybody's business. She knows everything about everyone.
That's why her hair is so big. It's full of secrets.
Hey, what's happening?
And evil takes a human form in Regina George. Don't be fooled, because she may seem like your typical selfish, backstabbing, slut-faced hoe bag, but in reality, she is so much more than that.
She's the queen bee, the star. Those other two are just her little workers.
Regina George. How do I even begin to explain Regina George?
Having lunch with the plastics was like leaving the actual world and entering Girl World. And Girl World had a lot of rules.
You can't wear a tank top 2 days in a row, and you can only wear your hair in a ponytail once a week. So I guess you picked today. Oh, and we only wear jeans or track pants on Fridays. Now, if you break any of these rules, you can't sit with us at lunch. Well, I mean, not just you, like, any of us. Okay, like, if I was wearing jeans today, I would be sitting over there with the art freaks. Oh, and we always vote before we ask someone to eat lunch with us, because you have to be considerate of the rest of the group. Well, I mean, you wouldn't buy a skirt without asking your friends first if it looks good on you.
I wouldn't.
Right.
Wait. Sit down. Seriously, sit down. Why don't I know you?
I'm new. I just moved here from Africa.
What?
I used to be homeschooled.
Wait, what?
My mom taught me at home.
No, I know what homeschool is. I'm not retarded. So you've actually never been to a real school before? Shut up. Shut up!
I didn't say anything.
Homeschooled. That's really interesting.
Thanks.
You're like really pretty.
Thank you.
So you agree?
What?
You think you're really pretty?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh my god, I love your bracelet. Where did you get it?
Oh, my mom made it for me.
It's adorable.
It's so fetch.
What is fetch?
Oh, it's like slang from England.
So if you're from Africa, why are you white?
Oh my god, Karen, you can't just ask people why they're white.
Could you give us some privacy for like 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, you should just know that we don't do this a lot, so this is like a really huge deal.
We want to invite you to have lunch with us every day for the rest of the week.
Get away with this again, okay? We're gonna do something.
We are.
Regina George is an evil dictator. Now, how do you overthrow a dictator? You cut off her resources. Regina would be nothing without her high-status man candy, technically good physique, an ignorant band of loyal followers. Now, Caddy, if we want this to work, you are gonna have to keep hanging out with them like nothing is wrong. Can you do it?
I can do it.
Regina, wait, I didn't mean for that to happen. To find out that everyone hates me? I don't care.
Regina, please!
Regina, stop! Do you know what everyone says about you? They say that you're a homeschooled jungle freak who's a less hot version of me. Yeah, so don't try to act so innocent. You can take that fake apology and shove it right up your hairy...
So people who live in rural areas tend to fall lower on the social class scale in the United States. These people tend to live in poverty, have high unemployment rates, and they lack the opportunity due to their geographical location. So a lot of people who live in a rural area probably work at locally family-owned businesses, different agriculture companies, whereas if they were to live in an urban area, they could work for larger corporations that tend to only be located in larger cities. So to give a little bit of a breakdown, you first have to understand capitalism. And capitalism is an economic system in which businesses, privately owned by people, who are called capitalists, operate the business for profit. The bourgeoisie are the owners of the businesses, factories, and they run the government and they are considered the capitalists in this scenario. The bourgeoisie have power over their workers, the proletariats, and they pay them low wages so their business can make a profit. This created conflict between the bourgeoisie and the proletariats because a class awareness became evident, and the bourgeoisie get economic and political power that the proletariat people have to abide by. So some strengths to capitalism is that results in the best products for the best prices. And then there's intrinsic rewards for innovation. And some weaknesses is it does not provide for those who lack competitive skills, which these include elderly, children, developmentally disabled, and caretakers. And it also does not promote equality of opportunity. So Marx's resolution was to just get rid of capitalism so that resources and power could be equally distributed among everybody. So with the United States being a capitalist country, this has yet to happen. So a few ways that we as social workers can apply the conflict theory is to advocate for women and girls who experience gender oppression in the United States, advocate the consequences of gender pay gap in the United States, help people that are on the lower part of the social class scale move up to higher social class scales by using our resources, and advocate for policy change to implement more diversity in the workforce. So the other part of conflict theory is the interest group conflict, which focuses on conflict resulting from different values and interests among social groups instead of social classes. The interest group conflict looks more at race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religion, politics, and values. So one concept of the interest group conflict is affirmative action, which can be extremely controversial. Affirmative action is a government program designed to redress historical injustice against specific groups by making special efforts to provide members of these groups with access to educational and employment opportunities. So this is actually to target specifically women and ethnic minorities here in the United States when it comes to going to college and working in the job force. So there's many pros and cons to affirmative action. Some support affirmative action because they believe it is necessary to fight discrimination against people of color, promote equality, and help level the playing field for oppressed populations. Whereas some cons would be that people believe that it is unfair to provide privileges to white people because that is a form of discrimination. So here is a great YouTube clip that shows the pros and cons of affirmative action.
Harvard case. So let's take a look at both sides of the argument. Those in favor of affirmative action see it as a way to fight long-standing discrimination when it comes to educational opportunities. They think it's necessary in making sure that minorities with good academic standing have access to higher education. But if you're on the other side of this argument, you don't see affirmative action that way. Many opponents believe that affirmative action policies are themselves discriminatory and can actually create racial tension. They say that qualified candidates end up getting rejected from schools while less qualified minority applicants get accepted for the sake of diversity. They even have a term for this, reverse discrimination. And at elite schools, less qualified could be the difference between perfect SAT scores and getting one question wrong. And this discrimination is kind of what...
Some populations that have had success with affirmative action include women and ethnic minorities. So like I said earlier, affirmative action it can be very controversial. So an example that I can give you is affirmative action has been banned in 8 states, and universities in those states now have race-blind admission when it comes to applying to college. So the University of Florida is one of those states, and with the ban on affirmative action, the diversity rates are being kept consistent, which is great. But on the other hand, the University of Michigan, who also does the blind race admission, is having a decreased rate in diversity, which is bad because ethnic minorities, less of them are graduating college at the University of Michigan, and less of them are getting accepted to go into college at the University of Michigan, which is what affirmative action was originally put into place for. So another way that this can be applied to social work is using accreditation to counter discrimination. So as most of us know, the CSWE is who accredits universities who have a social work program. In 1962, the CSWE adopted accreditation number 1234 that banned ethnic, racial, gender, and religious discrimination when it came to selecting students and faculty. In 1965, the affirmative action policy went into place, requiring each university undergoing accreditation to review, address the discrimination issues, and the schools provide information on how they deal with discrimination in student admissions. And then the CSWE took it a step farther in 1969 by requiring schools to demonstrate special efforts it was making to enrich its program by providing racial and cultural diversity into the curriculum. So the policy that the CSWE took in 1969 is why we last semester took cultural competence, because the accreditation board saw how imperative it was for us to be culturally competent and be able to use our competency when working with different ethnic backgrounds and minorities while helping oppressed populations in our field of practice. And here are my references for this video presentation. Thank you.